done. So this is what is required. If you want to achieve something in your life which you've never achieved, you've got to do something which you've never done. So if you want to, for example, if we talk about the civil service examination, if you've not achieved any success in this examination, so the need of the time is that you have to think about your strategy. You have to find out the faults, you have to find out the mistakes that you are committing repeatedly, and once you cover these loopholes, then I'm sure you'll qualify this examination with flying colors. So let's talk about today's article. The first article is coming. This is the most important image in the Hindu newspaper. This cargo ship was India bound, and it got attacked by Iran, and it shows that the impact of Israel, USA, and Iran war is reaching Indian shores, and it is also impacting India's energy security. So this image will be discussed at a later stage, that how this entire turmoil, how the disaster in West Asia is impacting us negatively. Now the first and foremost article of the day is the apex court upholds right to die for a man in vegetative state. This story is related to Harsh Rana, who was in a vegetative state for the past 12 years. Their parents appealed in the high court and then in the supreme court that they want an euthanasia, they want an assisted death for their son, because his son is in vegetative state for the past 12 years and there is no sign of recovery. So Supreme Court has approved euthanasia, passive euthanasia. So in this article, this is one of the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court in the realm of right to dignity, right to life, right to live with dignity, and right to die with dignity. So this is the case. Harshit Rana. Yep. So the Supreme Court Judge J.B. Pardiwala says that we want to acknowledge the deep emotional weight this decision carries. The decision can feel like an act of surrender, but we believe it in truth an act of profound compassion and courage. And again, the Indian Express also published extensively in this article the framework behind Supreme Court's euthanasia verdict. And then the judge, I think 4, 5, 6 articles are there related to the same active and passive euthanasia and its integration with the Indian Constitution. So the framework behind Supreme Court euthanasia verdict, you can get this article from the Indian Express. And the judge distinguishes between active and passive euthanasia. Right to dignified death prevails over interest of the state. And this is the last article. And this article says that Harish Rana, I mispronounced the name Harshit Rana. This is Harish Rana. Not an easy decision. We want to call it dignity in death instead. So I'll take you through all the article first. Then it says state feel the LPG cylinder pinch, though the government claims that we have adequate stock of LPG cylinders, but in major cities, major hotels and restaurants are facing the pinch. There is a long queue outside these godowns to get the cylinders, but unfortunately we are running short of LPG cylinders, and it is going to impact us negatively, and we are not sure how long or how much time this war will take place and how much time the situation will take to be normalized. So this is the second article we are going to discuss about it. The third article is coming from International Relations segment. Iran targets commercial ships, global energy concerns mount. And then we will talk about some other articles. We will go for an integration and previous year's questions. Then we will talk about some important articles such as ceramic units in pottery town of Khurja face closure amid West Asian crisis. So in these articles, we will talk about the spillover effect of LPG cylinder shortage. Right? We will talk about the spillover effect of LPG cylinders. The shortage of cylinders is not only related to the food or the eateries or the restaurants. It's also related to multiple small and medium scale industries. We'll talk about those industries. Now this is a detailed article, how the war in West Asia exposes India's LPG dependence. So this is a detailed article with all the data. We'll talk about it. Policy missteps. India has allowed panic over fuel availability to spread. This is sub-editorial which we'll cover. A seismic decision. India needs a holistic implementable earthquake zoning framework. This is the editorial of the day. We are going to cover editorial of the day. We are going to cover this article today. Then we have a revision of GDP and its implications. If the time permits, definitely we'll go and cover this article. So let's go for the first article. First things first. We'll start with this article. Apex court upholds right to die for man in vegetative state. So in this article, what are we going to do? In this article, we will talk about right to life in detail. We will talk about right to life, Article 21 and its wider interpretation. What do you mean by right to life? What exactly is life? What exactly is life? Is it only the breathing? Is it only the sleeping? Is it only being alive? And what is the meaning of dignity that we attach with the right to life? And then we will transition to euthanasia and right to die with dignity. Let me read the comments. प्रियम सेठ, आई प्रॉमिस यू, प्रियम अपने चैनल पे मैं हिंदी में कंटेंट लेके आऊंगा, आई प्रॉमिस यू. आप मुझे कमेंट करके बताइए आप कौन से ग्रुप में हैं. प्रियम, मैं वादा करता हूं आपसे, मैं अपने चैनल पे हिंदी लेके आऊंगा, चूंकि ये चैनल इंग्लिश के लिए बना है. बट आई प्रॉमिस यू बच्चे दैट आई विल कम अप विद, मैं हिंदी का कंटेंट और हिंदी की डिलीवरी लेके आऊंगा, मोस्ट प्रोबेबली आज इवनिंग से या कल मॉर्निंग से. आपसे वादा रहा. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section. Okay, so here it is. Right to life, Article 21. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? Does it mean that only breathing? Does it mean only living? Does it mean only eating? Or what is the holistic meaning of life? When we add dignity to it, when we add dignity to life, it becomes meaningful. We are human beings. We are the best creation of God. So we do not survive only. Survival is not important. What is important is survival with dignity. So this, when dignity comes into picture, then the whole definition is completed now. Right to life with dignity. At the same time, when we say right to life, Article 21, there are two interpretations. Right to live with dignity, right to live with dignity, and right to die with dignity. Right? We want dignity in both terms. We want dignity in both situations. When we are living our life, we need a dignified life, but our death must also be dignified. So this is what this article says. This is what this case is all about. That the right to live with dignity and right to die with dignity. We must need dignity in death. Now, how dignity in death is defined? How dignity in death? How dignity in death? How to understand it? So, let's take the case of Aruna Shanbhag. Prior to that, Aruna Shanbhag case went to the Supreme Court for euthanasia. Aruna Shanbhag. This was the case which drew the attention of Indians and the Supreme Court towards the right to die with dignity. She used to be a nurse in one of the hospitals in Mumbai. On one unfortunate night, she was molested by one of the ward boys. And the ward boy chained Aruna Shanbhag in a dog chain. And during that process, the oxygen supply to her brain got disconnected. And then she was totally into vegetative state from the very moment. For the next 32 years, she remained in a vegetative state. Despite all the medical intervention, no improvement was there. Then one of the lawyer went to the Supreme Court and asked for euthanasia. But at that point in time, we were not clear. Supreme Court didn't give a clear verdict, and after a few years, Aruna Schonberg died. But the question is, she remained in a vegetative state for 32 years. And through medical intervention, she was fed and she was kept alive. But do you think that if you are in a vegetative state for 32 years through medical intervention, it is dignified? What about the family? Is your family in happiness? Do you think that your family will be happy to see you in a vegetative state for continuously 32 years? The same is with this case. The case is related to Harsh Rana, who met with certain accident, and there was a head injury. After that head injury, Harsh Rana he is in a vegetative state for the past 12 years. Let me show you through images. This is the image of Harsh Rana, right? Harish Rana. For Ashok Rana and his wife, the Supreme Court's decision directing withdrawal of clinically assisted nutrition and hydration to their son, Harish, who has been a vegetative state for the past 30 years, was difficult yet gratifying. It is extremely difficult for parents to see their son dying, but it is again more difficult and more painful to see a son living in a vegetative state for the past 12 years. So I hope the thought process, your thought process might have got some clarity related to right to die with dignity and right to live with dignity. Now let me take you through the important decision and the constitutional angle. As I said, Article 21 is related to right to life, and right to life means right to life, right to live with dignity and right to die with dignity at the same time. So please, let's start with some note making. Yes, here it is. Now, first of all, let's start with meaning of euthanasia. What is the meaning of euthanasia? The meaning of euthanasia is the intentional ending of a person's life, the intentional ending of a person's life is called life to relieve suffering. To relieve suffering, especially in case of terminal illness, where recovery is beyond any scope. Right, so it simply says that intentional ending of a person's life to relieve suffering in case of terminal illness or irreversible medical conditions where recovery is not possible. So mainly here the keyword is intentional ending of a person's life. You deliberately decide that this person must die to get relief from the pain. Right? So, intentional ending of a person's life to relieve suffering from terminal illness or any such medical condition which is beyond recovery. So, this is what terminal illness is all about. Now, I'm sure you are clear about euthanasia. Let's talk about types of euthanasia. Euthanasia, there is passive euthanasia and active euthanasia. Right. What is passive euthanasia? The difference between passive and active euthanasia is, in active euthanasia, you administered certain poisonous injections which will lead to death. This is the kind of forced death. This is not a natural death. So, in India, active euthanasia is not allowed. Active euthanasia will lead to criminality. It will lead to criminality or criminal act of ending somebody's life. So we do not approve active euthanasia. Active euthanasia means direct to cause death, direct to cause death, direct to cause death, and illegal in India because it will be taken as homicide or abetment of suicide. Illegal. It's not allowed in India. So direct to cause death, active euthanasia, इसको हटा दीजिए. Now let's talk about passive euthanasia. Withdrawal or withholding of life support system. So let's say a person is on ventilator. A person is on ventilator, right? What you did? You stop the ventilator, you stop the machine, and thereby the person gets a slow death. Slow death because the life support system has been removed. So active euthanasia is not allowed in India because it will lead to criminality, whereas passive euthanasia is allowed. Withdrawal or withholding of life sustaining treatment such as ventilator or feeding tubes removed allows the disease to take its neutral course of action. Here the person is already diseased, the person is already suffering, right? The person is only breathing artificially. The person is breathing artificially. Why? Because of the help of the ventilator or feeding tubes. Feeding tubes. Now, when you remove ventilator, the disease takes over and the person dies a natural death. So passive euthanasia is allowed in India. I hope you got the clarity. Team, I hope you got the clarity that passive euthanasia is important. Okay. Now, the basic difference between active euthanasia and passive euthanasia is active euthanasia, I'll explain you here. Active euthanasia causes direct death. You are directly involved. You are injecting something poisonous and it causes direct death. Whereas passive euthanasia, what happens? You are withdrawing the life support system. You are withdrawing the life support system or feeding tubes, and that's how the disease takes over and the person dies a natural death. A person dies a natural death. But in active euthanasia, you are not allowing the person to die naturally. You are intervening or you are interfering in the natural process of death. So team, I hope you got the clarity, the difference between passive euthanasia and active euthanasia. Now let's talk about the constitutional basis, because UPSC in UPSC you have to talk everything from the constitutional angle. So constitutional basis of euthanasia. Constitutional basis. Everything is originating here from Article 21, that is right to life. Right to life here. Please pay attention. Right to life means right to live and die with dignity. Right to live and die with dignity. Article 21. Supreme Court says that according to right to life, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. No person should die, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except or according to procedure established by law. the court interprets right to life as right to live with dignity and right to die with dignity in certain circumstances. Right to die with dignity in certain circumstances. Thus, right to life is not right to die. Team, let me correct my sentence. It means Article 21 is right to life. Right to life is not right to live with dignity and right to die with dignity. So, Article 21, which says right to life, there is another interpretation, and that is right to life, right to life, right to life is not right to die, is not right to die. But right to life includes, team, Article 21 says right to life is not right to die. But right to life, right to life includes, right to life includes, what includes? It includes dignified death. Bachalo, is it clear? Right to life is not right to die. But right to life includes a dignified death. A death with dignity. Is that clear? Team, is that clear? And important articles here is Article 21. But again, remember the golden triangle of fundamental right. Always remember the golden triangle of fundamental right. What is that? This is golden triangle of fundamental, golden triangle of fundamental rights. Okay, what is that? Article 14, Article 14, Article 19, and Article 21. Right? Article 21 is right to life. Article 21, right to life. R2L. Article 14 is equality before law. Equality before law. And Article 19, right to freedom of speech and expression. Team, is that clear? Always remember this golden triangle of fundamental right, and wherever it is possible, please implement it. Article 14, Article 19, and Article 21, collectively called golden triangle of fundamental right. Now, history of euthanasia related law in India. History of euthanasia related law in India. We'll go for the chronology. Chronology or history of euthanasia. Euthanasia laws in India. So, we'll talk about the history. The first is the first and foremost case came in 1994. P. Rathinam versus Union of India. In 1994, the case under the name of P. Rathinam versus Union of India, 1994. The court held that right to life includes right to die. The court held that right to life includes right to die. Section 309 of IPC, attempt to suicide, declared unconstitutional. Right? In P. Rathinam case, Supreme Court held that right to life also includes right to die. Right to life also includes right to die. Includes right to die. Section 309 of Indian Penal Code. Section 309 of IPC, that is attempt to suicide. attempt to suicide declared unconstitutional. So that was the first case when we initiated right to life and right to die. Section 309 of IPC 1994. Now the second case came in 1996 from Punjab. 1996 from Punjab. And that case was related to Gyan Kaur versus the state of Punjab. Gyan Kaur versus state of Punjab. What was the judgment in this case? Supreme Court says that right to die in that case, Gyan Kaur versus state of Punjab 1996, the Supreme Court said that right to die is not a part of Article 21. Right to die is not a part of Article 21. Right to die is not a part of Article 21. However, dignified death in terminal illness may fall within the ambit of Article 21. Right to die is not a fundamental right, but right to die with dignity, in certain circumstances. You cannot go to the Supreme Court or you cannot go to the court and say that I want to die and I have every right to die. No, that is not possible. That is not allowed. Right to life includes right to die with dignity only in certain circumstances when your medical condition is not allowing you or forcing you to remain in vegetative state for a decade without any chance of improvement. When you are bedridden in a vegetative state, or when you are force feeded through feeding pipes, in that circumstances, to alleviate the pain, to alleviate not only your pain but the pain of your family as well, only in that situation you will get the right to die with dignity under certain exceptional circumstances. But right to die is not a fundamental right. So Supreme Court said that you have a right to die with dignity. You have a right to die with dignity under certain circumstances. Under certain circumstances. Is that clear, team? You have to right to die with dignity under certain circumstances, and that's what Supreme Court said in 1996, Gyan Kaur versus Punjab government. Now next case comes from Aruna Schonberg in 2011. In 2011, Aruna Schonberg case. Schonberg case, and this case is related to Aruna Schonberg, who used to be a nurse, and there was an attempt of molestation of this nurse by a ward boy, because of which she was changed. She was changed with a dog chain, and during this attempt of molestation, the oxygen supply got cut. Oxygen supply to brain got cut, and she moved into vegetative state for the next 32 years. So in Aruna Schonberg case, now the landmark case in Aruna Schonberg, it says petition was filed by activist Pinky Virani sought euthanasia for her. Petition for Aruna Schonberg was filed by Pinky Virani. Who was an activist, and she sought euthanasia for Aruna Schonberg in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that Supreme Court rejected euthanasia for Aruna but legalized passive euthanasia in principle and introduced safeguards. So the petition was rejected by the Supreme Court. The petition was rejected by the Supreme Court for Aruna Schonberg, but legalized passive euthanasia. What is passive euthanasia? You do not directly hit or you do not directly cause the death of that person. How is that direct intervention? By giving a poisonous injection or giving an injection which can lead to slow death. So in active euthanasia, you are disturbing the normal process of death. But in passive euthanasia, by simply removing the ventilator, or simply removing the oxygen pipe, or simply removing the feeding pipe, you are not interfering with the natural cause of death, because the person is already in a diseased death. That death is just waiting at the doorstep. Death is not entering into taking away the life, because of that medical intervention which working as a curtain, as a shield between the vegetative body state of body and the ultimate death. So this is it. So petition was rejected, but government, the Supreme Court, spoke about passive euthanasia. Now, Supreme Court put certain conditions for passive euthanasia. So what were the conditions for passive euthanasia? Conditions for passive euthanasia. These conditions were like this: approval from High Court, approval from High Court, there must be an expert medical board opinion, and the consent of relatives, or next friend, right? But in Aruna Shanbhog case, she was in a vegetative state for the past 32 years. So there was no question of consent of relative, because it was extremely difficult that who were the relatives of Aruna Shanbhog. It became extremely difficult to find out the relative or immediate family member of Aruna Shanbhog. As a result, Aruna Shanbhog's petition, was rejected, but Supreme Court created certain safeguards that you can go for the passive euthanasia in certain after fulfilling certain conditions. You get an approval from the High Court. You get a medical board of opinion with doctors, with the specialist, with more than 5 years of experience in that profession. And if they certify that the person is beyond recovery, only then it will be allowed. And again, consent of relative or next friend. Now, again, there was another case in 2018 that was related to common cause, and the common cause case was 2018 common cause. Common cause, an NGO which works for human dignity, right to life, and other things. Now, Supreme Court said in common cause case that right to die with dignity is a part of Article 21, recognizing living will and advance directive. Meanings, a person can specify beforehand that life support should not be continued if terminally ill. Living will. In common cause case, Supreme Court gave allowed the concept of living will. What is that living will? Living will means before your death, you can create a will, living will, which says, in which you can mention that in case if I meet with certain accident, in case if I meet with certain diseases which may lead to my vegetative state or terminally ill conditions, beyond which terminally ill condition in which I from which I may or may not be recovering, in that situation, my friends, my relatives, and the concerned person is allowed to go for passive euthanasia. So you do that, you can do that, and Supreme Court allowed it, that yes, living will can be approved. A person can specify beforehand the life support system should not be continued if terminally ill. In 2023, Supreme Court gave clarification related to euthanasia. In 2023, a clarification came from Supreme Court. A clarification came from Supreme Court. What was the clarification? Supreme Court simplified the procedure, and that was reduced role of magistrate, reduced role of magistrate. That's the first one. The second one is simplified approval process. Simplified approval process. And the third one was created clear medical medical board timelines. Clear timeline for medical boards, right? So this is it. These are some of these are some of the I would say the timeline related to euthanasia in India. It all started with the 1994 P. Rathinam versus Union of India, right to life and right to die, section 305 of IPC. Then the case went to 1996, Gyan Kaur versus Punjab State of Punjab. Article 21 says right to life is there, but right to die is not a fundamental right. Right to die with dignity in certain circumstances. This is what has been said in this case. Then came Aruna Shanbhag case 2011, and then conditions for passive euthanasia, and then 2011 common cause, and in 2023 Supreme Court gave certain conditions to be met, and it made the process smoother. And now in this case, what Supreme Court has said in this case, the Supreme Court permitted passive euthanasia of Harish Rana, a 32-year-old man who had been in persistent vegetative state since 2013 after a severe head injury. He survived only through medically assisted nutrition and medical support. Medical boards confirmed no possibility of recovery, and since there is no possibility of recovery, Supreme Court has given its consent for passive euthanasia. And with a heavy heart, Supreme Court has said the president that yes, passive euthanasia can be given in extraordinary circumstances when there is no chance of recovery of the person who is in a persistent vegetative state. Now, it should also be done when we say persistent vegetative state. Persistent vegetative state. Persistent vegetative state. When a person is in a persistent vegetative state, just imagine the trauma. Just imagine the trauma her family might be going through. The first and foremost is the mental, emotional, emotional trauma. If the person was the earning member, there will be another financial setback. Then medical expenses might ruin you. So now I don't mean to say that if the medical expenses are too much. 1 minute. If the medical expenses are too much in that situation, what can be done? If the medical expenses are too much and a person is in a vegetative state and there is no point of recovery, no chance of recovery, just imagine the trauma of the family involved or the family related to that person. So passive euthanasia, this landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, is commendable, keeping in mind the pain and the trauma the family has gone through in the past 13 years. At the same time, now this fellow, Mr. Rana, will get a dignified death after 13 years of pain and undignified life, which was not his choice. So this is a team. I hope the thoughts are clear. Now we are going for the next article that is related to yes. Now we are moving towards the next article, and this article is related to yep. This is the first article. We are going for the next article, and that article is that is related to LPG crunch. Yes, this is states feel the LPG cylinder pinch. We have started feeling the pinch, whereas the government says that we have adequate stock of LPG gas, so there will not be any problem. And yes, one thing I'd like to say, we have Priyam Seth, प्रियम, आप श्री राज आईएएस का हिंदी चैनल भी है, आप वहां पे आप ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं और वहां पे आपको हिंदी कंटेंट और हिंदी न्यूज़ एनालिसिस मिलेगा। बच्चे लोग, श्री राज आईएएस का हिंदी चैनल जो है आप वहां पे देख सकते हैं, एंड यू विल गेट हिंदी कंटेंट एंड हिंदी न्यूज़ एनालिसिस एट श्री राज आईएएस हिंदी चैनल। एक बार YouTube पे सर्च कीजिए और मैं इसमें लिंक भेज देता हूं, आप वहां ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं एंड यू विल गेट अ वंडरफुल क्लास बाय at that channel. Okay, yes. So move on to this article. States feel Iran targets commercial ships, global energy concerns mount. Now, few days back there was the same kind of article was there. India taps alternative crude supplies as conflict in West Asia drags on. I covered it in my news channel, news analysis. Now, um, let's look at some important things from the prelims perspective. Let's look at Iran, location of Iran, and I want you to do a mapping in a 360-degree style, which means that you will cover all the neighbors of Iran. So start with Armenia, start with Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, then Caspian Sea, the water body, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Gulf of Oman, Strait of Hormuz, Persian Gulf, and then Iraq. So remember this entire all the countries and water bodies surrounding Iran in a clockwise and anti-clockwise manner. Bache log, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to do a mapping of Iran, because this entire issue is related to Iran and Gulf War. So start with Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, then Caspian Sea comes, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Gulf of Oman, Strait of Hormuz, Persian Gulf, and Iraq, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And also clarify, also go for certain mappings such as Chabahar Port, because India has recently exited from Chabahar Port. Again, last year UPSC asked questions related to INSTC corridor. Again, 2025 UPSC asked question about Sumed pipeline. Sumed pipeline. This time the question might come from IMEC corridor. IMEC corridor, right? So there's a possibility, strong possibility of question coming from this section. Now, UPSC asked questions related like this. Consider the following statement: Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, and Romania. How many of the above mentioned countries share a land border with Ukraine? Right? So the question was related to Iran, but by mistake I mean the question was related to Ukraine, but by mistake I added Iran here. So how many of them are surrounding Ukraine? Because why this question was there in UPSC 2023? Because Russia-Ukraine war took place and still going on. That's why UPSC asked this question. Next question here. Consider the following statement. This was a question from 2022. That question asks Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. How many of them have borders with Afghanistan? How many of them have borders with Afghanistan? UPSC asked this question in 2022. Next is, let's look at Afghanistan, and please do mapping, because the question may not come from Afghanistan, but question may come from Iran, Chabahar Port, or any multilateral infrastructure project. So Afghanistan is surrounded by Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, and India doesn't touch the boundary of Iran, a boundary of Afghanistan. Now, I will also suggest you to do a mapping around Israel. I want you to do the mapping around Israel, Dead Sea, Golan Heights, right? So in a clockwise manner, do a mapping. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. Egypt, Israel. Yes, Egypt touches the boundary of Palestine. Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And the same way, do the same thing for Golan Heights. Okay, so please do mapping. Next is, let's have a look at it. I've added another map for you. Again, there are certain images which shows that how this LNG shortage is impacting the small medium enterprises in different parts of the country, such as ceramic unit in Khurja, then fuel crisis, supply chain disruption, rise in cost of raw material hits Haryana industry, and how the war in West Asia exposes India's LPG dependence. So there are two articles. I'll cover it one by one. Let's talk about this article now. Yes. Now the GS paper 2 international relations. In GS paper 2, the question will be related to India's relations with West Asia, India's India's relations with West Asia, or I would say India's stakes in West Asia. India's stakes India's stakes in West Asia. So what are India's stakes? India's stakes are energy security. We have 9 million strong diaspora. We have remittances. We have investment related prospects. We have connectivity. Right? So these are the stakes of India in West Asia. I hope it's clear. Now, at the same time, there is also a security angle. There is also a security angle of Indian diaspora in Middle East countries. Any kind of disruption in Middle East will disturb the lives of Indian diaspora there, and that will put pressure on the government of India. So this is India's stakes in West Asia. Now, GS paper 3 will include, in GS paper 3, it will include crude oil supply shocks, crude oil supply shocks and its impact, crude oil supply shocks and its impact, global commodity price volatility, global commodity price volatility, at the same time, some additional things to mention here. In GS paper 3, the question will come from crude oil supply shocks, India's strategic oil reserves, India's strategic oil reserves, India's energy security, India's energy security, right? And India's energy dependence, such as LPG dependence. The question will also come from supply chain resilience, supply chain resilience and disruptions. Supply chain resilience and disruption. So this will be a part of GS paper 3. Now let's talk about GS paper. In GS paper 3, it will also involve questions related to, in GS 3, it will also involve questions related to international and maritime security. Maritime security. And to handle this topic, I want you to be prepared with India's territorial waters, India's exclusive economic zone, India's rights in territorial waters and exclusive economic zone. Now, international law, also prepare yourself with United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, right? SOLAS, these are international conventions. Okay, International Seabed Authority. So be prepared with these things, these details, these organizations, their mandate, and how they operate in international relations. Also prepared yourself with this choke points. Do a mapping of choke points. I hope the mapping is clear. I hope the syllabus integration is clear. Now let's move to Iran targets commercial ships. Now, recently, Iran has attacked a commercial ship, India-bound ship. Target include Iran attacked commercial ships in the Persian Gulf. Target included Dubai Airport financial infrastructure, and one India-bound ship also got attacked, which is known as Mayuri Nari, caught in crossfire. Ship got attacked and caught fire in the Strait of Hormuz. 3 crew members are missing. Now, it's a clear indication that the war is not centered only around West Asia. Its spillover is felt, its heat is felt by India. Not directly, not indirectly, directly as well. And this is one such incident when an India bound cargo was attacked. If it's not sure whether it was deliberate or indeliberate or the ship was caught in crossfire. It's not clear yet. Or is it a reaction from India side? Is it a reaction from Iranian government or Iranian guards, keeping in mind India's unclear statements about Iran or close proximity with Israel? It's not sure yet. But for sure, this was an India-bound cargo and it was attacked near Strait of Hormuz. Now, 3 crew members got missing and attacked part of wider escalation between Iran and Israel. Now, why this matters globally? Because we all know the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is an important choke point which connects Persian Gulf, with Gulf of Oman, and responsible for the flow of 55 to 60% of global oil, and Iran has shut down the Strait of Hormuz, thereby jeopardizing the energy security of India. Now let's talk about LPG and LNG. Qatar is the largest supplier of LNG for us. But again, due to blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, India is unable to get any oil supply now. So, understand the Strait of Hormuz, the choke points. The next dimension is India's direct connection. Now, if you talk about India, India is an energy deficient country. India is an energy starved country. And India imports 88% of oil. As of now, the oil price is $110. Please remember, every $1 increase in global crude oil price impacts India by $1 billion in its current account, and it leads to inflation and current account deficit. So it's already $110 and it will reflect in India's current account deficit. So any kind of disturbance in Middle East will lead to disturbance in India's energy security. It will disturb India's diaspora, the remittances, security prospects, or it can also disturb the multilateral project that we might have initiated, such as Chabahar Port. We have recently shut out and exited from Chabahar Port. INSTC corridor related question was there. Sumed pipeline related question was there. There is a process going on. There is a communication going on about submarine cable. There is IMEC corridor. Because of Israel-Palestine war, that IMEC corridor is already in trouble. So this is the second dimension. Now, India's response, what Minister of External Affairs has said, that Minister of External Affairs is committed to protect the Indian citizen and Indian interest in Middle East, and India has strongly condemned this attack on India-bound ship. monitoring safety of Indian sailors, and watching escalation in West Asian conflict. Oil market reaction, but obviously fear of shipping disruption. This attack on this ship will lead to cascading effect. This attack on the ship will have cascading effect. What are the cascade? What do you mean by cascading effect? Means one incident is leading to another incident, and leading to another incident, and leading to another incident, and leading to another incident. Right? It will have cascading effect. How it will impact in a cascading manner? Because of this attack, what will happen? Insurance companies will refuse to give any kind of cover to ships, and even if they give cover, the premium will be higher. Premium will be higher. Again, India's cargoes or any country's cargoes will either stuck at Indian ports, will either get stuck at Indian ports, or it may get stuck in Middle East ports, in Oman, Saudi Arabia, or other. So anyways, it will lead to cost escalation. It will lead to cost escalation. And because this area is under severe fire, you may also plan to change the route, which will again raise the cost of the cargo, and thereby the trade will be stagnant. The trade will be stagnant in India. So team, I hope this is clear, the meaning of cascading effect, and that is the only thing about this article. We are discussing about Iran conflict for the past 5-6 months. So this is it. Now we are going for the next article. We are going for the next article, and that is related to, yes, this is the next article. How the war in West Asia, this one. How the war in West Asia exposes India's LPG dependence. India's LPG dependence. Okay, so this article says that how the war in West Asia exposes LPG dependence of India. So in UPSC syllabus, it is again GS paper 3 energy security. Then we'll have GS paper 2 international relations and GS paper 1 geography. Now, the US-Israel conflict with Iran has disrupted shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. India has exposed India's this incident has exposed India's dependence for LPG on West Asian countries. And it also shows that most LPG shipment to India pass through the single choke point that is the cause of concern for India. About 85 to 90% of India's LPG import travel through the Strait of Hormuz. So, yep, let's have some data because there is nothing critical here. So, let's have some data related to LPG procurement of India. India produces 40% of LPG needs. India produces 40% of its LPG demands domestically. India receives 40%, India produces 40% of its LPG demand from domestically, and for 60%, remaining 60%, India is dependent at the rate West Asia. West Asia, which are the top 3 countries in West Asia? Top 3, always remember countries in terms of rank. Team, always remember countries in terms of rank, because UPSC asks questions in terms of rank only, 1, 2 or 3, right? So top 3 countries related to LPG import to India, LPG export to India: Qatar, UAE and Kuwait. Qatar, UAE and Kuwait, right? So this is the basic data. LPG dependence of India: 40% of LPG is produced in India domestically, and remaining 60% is 60% India is dependent on top three countries, mainly Qatar, UAE, and Kuwait. That's it. Uh, yes. Now, demand explosion in India. Let's have some other data related to LPG. Demand explosion means why the demand for LPG has risen. The first one is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana provided LPG cylinder. PM Ujjwala Yojana. PM Ujjwala Yojana, right, provided 10 crore LPG cylinders. 10 CR LPG cylinders, right? Result is household LPG demand surge, import dependence increases, energy vulnerability exposes. So because of this 10 crore LPG demand, what happened? The demand surged. Demand surged. When the demand surged, import surged. And when the import will rise, your dependence will rise. Team, got the idea? Demand explosion, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, under which the government gives gas cylinder to every needy person under certain circumstances, with certain terms and conditions. 10 crore LPG cylinders were given. Demand has got surged. Because of demand rise in demand, the rise in import also witnessed, and because of the rise in import, dependence also rose, and here it is backfiring. Next is, yep, India has 33 crore LPG connections. Now, this article also talk about the structural weakness of India. Structural weaknesses of India. When it comes to LPG supply. What are India's structural weakness? India has, the first and foremost is, India has structural weakness of with limited storage capacity. Limited storage capacity. Limited storage capacity. The second one is in yep, underground LPG storage is only 1.4 lakh tons, which will only sustain 2 days, which will only sustain 2 days of LPG consumption in India. And that's why we have a chaotic situation. We have underground storage capacity of 1.4 lakh metric tons, which will not more than, which is less than 2 days of national consumption. If we talk about European Union, they have a storage capacity of 25% of the total annual demand. If we talk about USA, largest strategic reserves, and India has not more than 2 days of supply, because of which the small eateries, dhabawalas and hotels are going to be shut down if the LPG supplies is not continued or resumed as soon as possible. Impact of West Asian conflict. So what will be the impact of this conflict? Impact of this conflict will be LPG shortage, demand rise, and when the demand will rise, the price will rise. When the availability will not be happen, hotels, dhabas, many industries will shut down. Now what the government is doing? what the government is doing, government is asking refiners to increase domestic LPG production, because we at least we produce 40% of LPG demands. So if we increase, we might bridge the gap by certain percentage, but that is not the full solution. Exploring alternative supply routes, monitoring shipping risk, and government also invoked emergency powers to prevent coking gas shortage. I will also suggest you read the provisions related to Essential Commodities Act. Read the provisions related to Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act and its provisions. Right? So this is it. We'll go for the third article now, which is important one. The holding up half of the sky of India's farms. Now, this is today's editorial. Editorial of the day. Agriculture and role of women in agriculture. So, first of all, let's learn about Indian economy. Indian economy and sectors of Indian economy, mainly primary, secondary, and tertiary. If we talk about the labor force involved in primary sector, approximately 45 to 55% of India's labor force is involved in agriculture, contributing 18% to India's GDP. Team, is that clear? We have divided Indian economy in different sectors. The first sector is primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. In primary sector, we have 45 to 55% of labor force involved in agriculture sector, out of which 18%, which contributes 18% to the GDP. Now, out of this 45 to 50%, approximately 60% or approximately 60% labor force constitute of women. Again, there is another dimension. When we talk about agriculture, we are also talk about animal husbandry. We are also talking about animal husbandry. We are also talking about fisheries or horticulture. Right? Because why I'm talking about fisheries and horticulture together? Because all these industries are integrated one. They are not alone. Again, food processing is another layer. Food processing industry is another layer. Food processing industry. Right? So these are agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries or horticulture, or food processing. They are integrated with each other. In all these segments, in all these sectors, women play a very vital role. Women play a vital role across all these industry, agriculture, horticulture, fisheries, and so women contribution is higher, but women's contribution is invisible. Women's contribution in this entire women's contribution in agriculture and allied activities. I would say agriculture and allied activities. Name it, agriculture and allied activities. Right? The women's contribution in agriculture and allied activities is invisible. Or Apart from agriculture related activities, they have to take care of the care as well, but the care is also invisible. So if India talks about the sustainable agriculture, if India talks about sustainable agriculture, we have to put women at the center of sustainable agriculture concept. Women must be at the center of sustainable agriculture concept. Because if the women is not happy, if the women is invisible, if the women is underpaid, if the women is overworked and underpaid, if the women labor is not counted, right, in that situation sustainable agriculture cannot be promoted. So women must be at the center of sustainable agriculture practices. This is what this article talks about. So I hope you got the concept. Now integrate sustainable development goals here. Integrate sustainable development goal. Integrate and let me know that which goal will be integrated here. Next is the core argument. The core argument of this article is the core argument. The core argument of this article is that women, suppose this is the image of a woman farmer. This is the image of a woman farmer. Women form the backbone. Women form the backbone of agriculture economy of India. Women form the backbone of Indian agriculture, yet they remain undercounted. Yet they remain undercounted. Yet they remain undercounted, underpaid, and under-recognized. Team, women, the core argument of this article is women forms the backbone of India's agriculture sector. But despite being the backbone, they are undercounted, underpaid, under-recognized, right? Now the key paradox is women sustaining farming but receive low wages and little ownership of asset. Yep, little wages, whereas our constitution article talks about that equal pay for equal work. But there is a gender discrimination as well. There is a gender discrimination when it comes in terms of wages. Gender discrimination. They are getting little wages, they are getting underpaid, and there is no ownership of land. They also lack the ownership. When in agriculture or in any sector, women lacks the ownership of resources, she will automatically be deprived of multiple things, such as if women doesn't have a land right, they will not have sustainable source of income. They cannot get a loan because loan will require a collateral. They may not go for the entrepreneurship. Again, in Indian context, when we talk about farmer, we talk about the Indian male farmers. It's not specifically mentioned, or our schemes are not designed in such a way so that they can maintain gender neutrality. So when we talk about farmers, Indian farmers, we are mainly referring to Indian male farmers, not the females. So the core argument is that Indian women forms the backbone of Indian agriculture, but they are undercounted, underpaid, under-recognized, little wages. There are gender discrimination, and they lack ownership of the land resources. When a woman lacks land ownership, land resources, they are not going to get a loan, they are not going to get facilities, and this is how they will remain subservient. They will always get the low amount of payment and empowerment. Now the problem of women is The problem of women in agriculture, the problem of women being in agriculture is invisibility. What is that? Invisibility. They are invisible workers, right? They work in inform. Yep, there's one more concept. There's one more catchword: the feminization of agriculture. The feminization of agriculture. What does that mean? The feminization of agriculture sounds positive, but this is not positive. This is not positive. Feminization of agriculture means more and more women are entering into agriculture. But why are they entering into agriculture? Because too much of migration has taken place. The male member of the family is leaving village, moving towards urban areas, leaving towards urban areas for what? Living towards urban areas to have a stable income. And who is left behind? Who is left behind? Women, children, and old age people. So in that situation, they are forced to enter into agriculture and they are severely exploited. Team, is that clear? Team, is that clear? Team, is that clear? That women's invisibility. There is a word called, there is a phrase, feminization of agriculture, but it's not a positive sign. More and more people are moving out of cities, moving out from the villages. They are moving towards urban centers to work as a daily wage laborers. Women, children, and old age people are left behind, and as a result, they are forced to enter into agriculture sector. But still, they are overworked, underpaid, and there is no resources under their name. So again, agriculture work is not only the only job they do. They are also supposed to do the domestic work. Domestic work. So they have a double burden. They have a double burden. They have a double burden to work as an agriculture laborer and also take care of the household chores. The second argument, rising participation but poor quality jobs. It shows according to the data, participation is rising. Rising participation of women. Rising participation of women in agriculture, but the quality of job is poor. The quality of job is poor. The quality of job is poor. Let's have a data. 46, according to 2023-24, 46.5 labor force, 46.5% of the labor force constitute women, approximately 50%, still below global average of 57 to 63%. 57 to 63% global average, which means that yes, the participation of women has risen in agriculture sector, but still the quality of jobs is poor. They are overworked, underpaid, no resources under their name, and still it is below the global average of women's participation in agriculture. Now, the growth is mainly self-employment. It is also said that more and more women are going for self-employment. Self-employment in agriculture sector, but the reality is these are small and menial jobs. These are small and menial jobs. The women, the female may not be able to go to the farm, work as a laborer because she may have She may be alone, she may have a kid to take care of, so they do something which can be done in their house, within their house, but that cannot be called entrepreneurship. That will not lead to improvement or empowerment. So women's role in farming, yep. What are the primary role they do? The primary role of women in agriculture, the primary role of women in agriculture is the primary role of women in agriculture is crop cultivation, the crop cultivation. The second one is livestock sector, livestock sector. The third one is, yep, inequality. If you talk about the average daily wage, it is approximately 300 for females and 500 for males. So there is a disparity in terms of the payout. Low returns from agriculture. Annual farm return was 16,000 in eastern UP and 24,000 Tamil Nadu villages. So crop production is earning less. That's the reason more and more male members are moving towards urban centers, and women, children and old age people left behind to take care of the farm activities. Limited asset ownership is one of the biggest problem among all the labor force. Approximately 50% or 46%, only 10% of the females have land ownership, means land assets under their name. Remaining more than 90% of the women in agriculture, they do not have any assets or land resources under their name. Now, key findings. What are the key findings of this article? Women now form about 1/3 of agriculture workforce. In fact, women agriculture workforce is 21.7 million. 21.7 million, exceeding male workers, means more and more women are entering into agriculture, but wages are less, the quality of jobs is poor. Now, policy, give me a second. So what the policy recommends, what this article recommends? This article recommends the article recommends recognition of women as a laborer, recognition of women as farmer, recognition of women as farmer, ensure equal wages, ensure equal wages, improve land ownership rights, improve land ownership rights, and then collect better gender data. So this is the policy recommendation: recognition of women as farmer, ensure equal wages, improve land ownership, and and collect better gender data so that better policies can be formulated. So this is it in this article today. And yes, let me check. Yes. So बच्चे लोग, this is for today. We'll get back to you tomorrow with some new articles and new informations. Till then, thank you so much. Wish you a wonderful day ahead. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.